Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Wednesday, September 3rd. Apologies. Did get some notes from people looking for this show yesterday. It's just a tough day. It's really tough. The end of Saratoga and moving back to the city always coincides with the beginning of school, and that's quite a double whammy. But we're dealing, and we're here, and we've got a lot to talk about. So much to talk about that I'm just going to predict we're not going to get to it all in the 30 minutes we have booked with our guest, man, who everybody loves, especially this time of year. And it's sort of comical. I 10 years ago, you might have laughed if you said that these horses had their last prep before the Breeders' Cup on September 3rd. But that's the world we live in, Nick Tammaro. How are you?
Oh, you're trying to get me riled up right off the bat, Pete. But yeah, you know what buttons to push. But yes, we're in Breeders' Cup prep season, so pretty soon the Triple Crown will be considered Breeders' Cup preps, right?
They'll just run, Triple Crown, we're right to the Breeders' Cup, and then the breeding shed. No, that's not going to happen. It's not that bad. There are horses out there. You can think of one on the West Coast who buck right. Well, yeah, where he is on the West Coast right now. He'll buck that trend, but it's there's so much to unpack. I never do this. I'll ask you, where should we start?
Let's start with the Pacific Classic.
Okay, Pacific Classic, truly wild scene there in the early furlongs. Fierceness trying to take a left turn, nearly banging into the temporary rail, getting himself then in and amongst a pocket of horses, at which point I said, this horse has no chance from there. When's he ever had a good race with a straw in his path? Well, he put the lie to that, Nick. He shut off sweetly. He moved aggressively around the turn, and he blew that field away.
He really did. Yeah, this was, I got to tell you, Pete, I was skeptical going in because my opinion in general is that when Todd Pletcher trainees usually tip their hand that they're going the wrong direction, they generally don't bounce back.
Right.
And so the Whitney to me felt like it might have been Fierceness's last opportunity at a big performance. He obviously underperformed. And so I thought we were getting, they're shipping him out west to let him just go through the motions. And, then we're going to get the phantom bone bruising, and that'll be it. And he'll go to stud, a very decorated horse. This was the complete opposite. He was sharp. He was comfortable. Granted, he had the issue in the first furlong. I saw this described as a terrible trip or overcame all kinds of adversity. Look, it's not ideal for a horse to veer in the way he did. The thing is, he has a lot of tactical speed. We'll talk about a horse a little bit later in this show in a different race that encountered some early issues that really doesn't have that weapon of tactical speed. But, the decisive moment obviously was inside the half-mile pole when John Velasquez saw an opportunity between horses. He knifed him through there. He quickly assumed command, totally dismissed of the front runners. And, during that period of time, he opened up the advantage that was just going to be too much for anybody to overcome. So I was just telling a friend of mine, I was talking to him about this. Fierceness has two outlier performances in his career. There were two times where things really didn't go decidedly his way, and he ran very well. And the common thing among those two, Pete, is they were both at Del Mar.
Yeah.
So, he might be a horse that just likes hearing those waves crash and likes that nice ocean air, because as good as he's been anywhere else, and he's been very good elsewhere, he's been a little bit better there. And I know the speed figures might not completely back that up because he does have some fast figures elsewhere. The difference for me about the Pacific Classic and last year's Breeders' Cup Classic is that those are upgradable figs because they didn't come with the soft pace that he got in the Ali Sheba, or the relatively soft pace that he got in the Travers, or the speed favoring surface that he got in the Jim Dandy. All of those races where he did put forth exceptional performances. This was just a really good and complete effort. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a Breeders' Cup top 10 voter. I voted Fierceness first this week.
Wow.
He won me over completely. I moved him all the way to the top, and I think I had him fourth going into it, so it's not like he moved up a ton. But I think he's the horse to beat as of right now.
I get second. I don't know if I get one, given the figure sovereignty ran and all that, but we'll get more into it. Yeah, for a normal horse, as weird as the beginning was, for a horse that had proven he could shut off, run between horses and finish, I wouldn't have said there was any issue with the trip. For fierceness, that was a horror trip by his own standards of seemingly not needing a straw in his path to do his best. So I did think he proved something. For me, I did elevate him to that. I think for me, he's in that second spot in that list. Let's talk about the horse that was trying to close down fierceness laid on there, Journalism. This is one you can read two different ways, and we may be on different sides of it. So I'm going to definitely let you go first on this one. I may not have interpreted what you wrote on Twitter correctly. So I want you to just speak about where you think Journalism is after this performance, and to really let you know what I'm talking about, if they might consider rerouting from the Breeders' Cup Classic.
You have to wonder, and I do think our countryman Umberto Rispoli took a little too much flack for this ride. I think if you want to take Umberto to task, what you're going to say is that when Fierceness moved, he should have gotten into him a little bit sooner. I think Umberto thought he had a little more horse under him than he did. And I still thought at the quarter pole when they turned for home, it felt to me like the San Felipe. And I thought he's just going to grind this horse down. And then you realize that wasn't Barnes that he was running at. That was Fierceness.
Or Gosker.
Right, or Gosger, or goal-oriented, and these older
different
horses,
level of form here.
They're a different beast, right? And in 2024, we were dealing with a very ho-hum group of older horses. We are not in 2025. This is a very good group of older horses, and Fierceness is just one of them. So my concern with Journalism, and this comes from just a perspective of total admiration for the horse, the connections, everything they've done. I'm a fan. I'll be a fan forever. I think he's going to make a great 4-year-old. I'm just afraid he's going to be doing it in Kentucky in a breeding shed. I hope that's not the case. I just wonder if he's really most effective in 1.25 miles. And the thing is, his damn side, Mopatism was 1 mile and an 1/8 stake winner, but she really was best at about 7/8 to a mile. I get he's a Curlin. They don't all want 1.25 miles. Right. So
they're individuals.
They're individuals, exactly. This is now 3 10-furlong races where he has lost ground in the final furlong. And, when you're doing it to Sovereignty because he's running by you, no big deal. But when you're doing it to Fierceness, who kind of chewed you up and spit you out, it looks a little bit more ominous in terms of his ability to get the 10th furlong. Maybe Michael McCarthy, who I think is as good a trainer as there is out there, can figure out how to build a little more stamina into him in some of the training that he'll do between now and the Breeders' Cup. There's also the possibility, Pete, that this is a horse showing the ill effects of a long campaign. We just don't have.
I know it pains you to say that, I know, but it's hard to avoid the conclusion, right?
The travel, the Triple Crown itself, the 3 and 5 weeks, going back to Monmouth. It's the first time the horse ran out of his stall in 5 months. And so that gets difficult. And I wonder if maybe that's over the top is the phrase you start to worry about, maybe that he's just had a little bit too much.
Well, and to that point, and we talked about this about his last run, I said, I want to be wrong about this, but I really don't like thinking about where Journalism's early speed has gone. Because one of the things we've seen over the years, Arrogant, probably the poster child, they start to lose their early speed. The form arrow, the condition arrow, whatever you want to call it, starts to go in the wrong direction. And also to that end, like pace figure wise, Journalism probably runs the same late pace figure as Journalism. Let's look at the sectionals here. 25.30 for Fierceness closing up, 25.34 for Journalism. But not saying you're wrong, because when Journalism doesn't expend himself early, he's supposed to be faster yet. So that to your point about cutting back, it's not crazy to me, because he probably should have been finishing with more alacrity, taking it so easy in the early part of that race. Having said that, back to the 1.25 mile issue, the only other way I'd read it is, yes, he lost ground 3 times in going 1.25 miles, but it was to a rocket ship each time, and maybe his best chance in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. Maybe now I'm holding two thoughts in my head, contradictory thoughts in my head at the same time here, but bear with me. Maybe the lack of early speed, if this thing ends up being a big pace, which you'll often see if we get a big full field of very talented horses, even if some of them do their best work coming from behind. We did see Sovereignty show increased early interest in his last race. Maybe weirdly, the last move could be the best move in the Breeders' Cup Classic if they take this 1.25 mile race and really make it a stamina test. This really talented horse coming from last, almost not unlike Sierra last year, who many, he was a divisive horse for the Classic. A lot of us liked him around here, but you heard a lot of people who were just tired of the act. And does he really want this? Is he really this quality? I don't know. Could journalism maybe play that role in the Breeders' Cup Classic?
It's possible. The scenario that you lay out where a last move could win the race, it immediately begs the question. You think that suits him more than it does Sierra Leone or Sovereignty? It feels like one of them wins a last move kind of race probably more often than journalism does. He's got to get some of the tactical speed back. There's no doubt about it. And falling as far behind as he did is always going to put him at a huge disadvantage. So that's got to be the big worry right now, is that it looks like he can't quite keep up as much early. And boy, halfway down the backstretch, I thought he was a complete cinch in the Pacific Classic, right? There's 6 horses battling in front of him. He's detached by 3. They're going pretty quick, which I think the other thing, and I'm interested in seeing the pace figures, they're not out. But when they do, I think we all need to be reminded that 46 flat or so at 1.25 miles at Del Mar is not as fast as you might think.
Right.
Because of the long run to the quarter and the fact that they just pretty much stay quick all the way around the turn. But yeah, I wanted him to run a little bit better. Obviously, he was a silly price at what,
2.5.
So, but again, that speaks to how much these 3-year-olds are going to take action in the Classic. And Sovereignty right now looks like he'll be probably 7-5 or so. I was telling somebody who asked me on the morning line, what would you make him right now? I said 8-5.
Yeah, I think he has to be. I mean, that 115 just towers over. So this Fiercest got 107, journalism got 102. In my little fanboy scenario there where journalism can win, I was envisioning a world where, due to race dynamics, both Sierra and Sovereignty were asked for a little bit early. I did want to clarify that. I think you're right. Yeah. If they all run just their race, but that idea is that I put forth is completely fanciful. But it's going to be
the point that you're making too is that Sierra Leone did not run his normal race in last year's Classic. He did not lope along and make one big late move. He moved much earlier, right? He effectively grabbed control of that race on the turn.
Yes.
So that was a bit of tactical speed that we didn't really think he had.
Let's talk about Sierra Leone and what we saw in this race that I don't know which order to talk to. Let's start with Sierra because he's right there. Affected, I thought he was affected tremendously by the incident early in the race. And I think you can make the case that he ran as well as the winner. First, start with that. Is that crazy?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, I think he ran about as well as the winner. I want to give the winner his due as well, but we're talking
Antiquarian, we're talking. Yes, we should name him.
Right, who's just feels like he's going to be the most forgotten horse from this race. But no, I mean, I think when you're, the problem is I don't know exactly what to make it analogous to, but when you're already going to come from such a deficit and, if you're down by 20 in a basketball game and you've got to come back and your best player picks up his 4th foul, it makes it that much harder, right? And so Sierra Leone is a horse that's always going to come from a big deficit, and he lost a little bit more ground because Flavien Prat did try to avoid Irad when he was stricken on the ground. Did his best to do so. He didn't really avoid him, but thank God.
The horse. Might have been down to the horse or down to blind luck, right? I mean, you watch that. Watching that the first time, I was on TV, and it's like you don't even know what to say. You fear the worst. Let's put it that way.
I swear to God, those guys are made of rubber. Like they're tough, and yeah, you can't keep them down. So no, glad to see that Irad made it through okay. But yeah, I think it did affect Sierra Leone tremendously. Maybe not tremendously. It affected him enough to make it difficult when he was already going to face a big deficit.
Right. I mean, he got within, so in speed figure terms, he gets within 2 points of him. 108 for Antiquarian, 106 for Sierra Leone. And I just don't think you can hold. It's just funny because I do think in market terms, if Sierra Leone wins this race, my gut is that he's still going to be your public second choice, even with the big run from Fierceness and that the length and a half here going a mile and a quarter. I do think it's enough to make him your third choice in the race. Did you see this coming at all from Antiquarian? Mikey P loved the horse, put up a good case on the podcast that we did, and I thought, you know what? I can see it if I squint, but I didn't really get it. Where were you with Antiquarian?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was probably roughly third, fourth best, somewhere in that range. I thought his run in the Suburban was very good, and he apparently was training very well. So he looked like a progressive type that was definitely on the improve. Again, a little bit of an atypical Todd horse whose campaign it looks like was kind of flipped almost backward, that he's getting better as time goes by. A lot of Todd's horses run well early in the year, but he's a nice horse, and a 108 fig really puts him in the general conversation for this race. So if he can take his game out west and stay at a top level for 9 weeks, why can't he contend?
Yeah, I mean, this is a horse that in a normal Breeders' Cup Classic would be single digits, obviously, off of
last
that.
Year he would have been,
favorite.
Last year he would have been the best older horse in the race by a mile.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see. Let's discuss the ugly incident. You love Kendrick. I love Kendrick. The horse probably didn't do him any favors, but I mean, it's hard not to read this as I was surprised that he didn't get more days for it. Maybe that's his good reputation. I mean, it was an ugly watch.
It was, yeah. No, one of the things that I think is important to remember is that some of the way stewarding was changed during this meet, and I think it's fair to say that some of the stewarding was changed, is that
definitely those early DQs.
They're trying to get a better handle on a lot of these early race machinations that have become all too common, yet are dangerous, and they're disadvantageous for the betting public as well. The gate stuff, the early position things, stuff like that, the intimidation. The move that Kendrick made was reckless. My bigger issue with it, especially coming from somebody who's such a media darling, is that his comment afterwards was very tone deaf. And he said basically like, oh, I was clear. That must have been Dylan. And, here was Dylan, right, sort of taking heat for this, including from a billionaire that was obviously sore about the result, was totally unfair because, we'll have that conversation next. Yeah. But as far as the move that Kendrick made, it was reckless. It was ill-advised. And, it's one of those where I understand what he wanted to do. The problem is that these aren't Matchbox cars. And so you move them one direction, there's going to be a little bit of exaggerated motion. And that's what happened and obviously caused the chain reaction.
Let's get into the rabbit thing. It's interesting because there have been, for different reasons, conversations about this issue in Europe as well. I'll give you my position, and I actually don't know your position on this. But, I mean, to me, they've been doing this for 4 centuries now. And pacemakers have been part of the game. The idea of getting upset about it, it's almost laughable to me. But where are you in the general concept of pacemakers?
I'm totally and completely fine with it. I don't see any rational argument against it. I think the only argument I could possibly entertain is, should there be some designation so that the public is almost made aware of it? But buyer beware.
Yeah, right? I feel that way too. I mean, they used to be coupled entries. Yeah. It's the entry thing is. I'm glad to see the entry thing generally going away, just because I think on balance that's so bad for the betting public that whomever and smart people. I mean, Mike Maloney disagrees with me on this. He disagrees with the buyer beware idea. But I mean, that is how it is in the UK. The UK also proves in Ireland that they do win once in a while. You're not burning your ticket on the pacemaker. I don't like there's 3 and you don't know which one the pacemaker is. Like that's worse from a betting public point of view. But this idea, I mean, let's get to the Rapoli thing. I mean, and Kendrick and Dylan. I don't think the pacemaker makes it more dangerous. I don't understand that argument even.
More dangerous is ridiculous. I mean, that's a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. More dangerous. That's insanity. And I will say about your last point before we move on from it completely. I love Mike Maloney as much as anybody in the game, but Mike has made his living taking advantage of the mistakes of the betting public. So if people can't siphon out or decipher a rabbit, then hey. But anyway, yeah, the whole idea of rabbits is, and I thought, Darren Zoccali put up a replay of a race in 2021 at Saratoga when a micropoli owned horse served as a rabbit against Rinaldi in the West Point Stakes at Saratoga. So it happens. And I did think it was funny that, in the middle of this sort of borderline incoherent rant, Mike said, well, I don't have a problem with rabbits. It's just that this rabbit. It was like, well, this rabbit. So, and then he made this asinine case for Sierra Leone being disqualified because of interference from his rabbit. And it was like, this is like, you would think there was going to be a reference like drawings on a cave wall. Like it was complete insanity. So yeah, they were obviously upset. He was upset clearly at the situation. Unfortunately, that's horse racing, right? That's stuff that happens in horse racing. The problem there was that Kendrick made an ill-advised move. Dylan had to compensate for it. Did Dylan overreact? That's not for us to say, right? We're not on horseback with a 1,000-pound animal coming towards us.
He was the aggrieved party, so I feel
Yes.
very wrong saying Dylan did anything. I know
Dylan
what
did
I
nothing
know that
wrong.
Yeah, that's
nothing wrong whatsoever.
Making a split-second decision with his life on the line. It's
right. The sheer act of athleticism by Irad to effectively be on both White Barrio and Mindframe at the same time, and then he pulls Zayas back into the saddle because Zayas could have fallen down too. Which it's sort of, and in the first furlong of that race, I thought to myself, because if you remember, White Barrio had a jockey change, and apparently that had to do with a conversation between Ricardo Santana Jr. and the connections of White Barrio. And there was some disagreement about the way they wanted him ridden. Well, if you look, Zayas is pumping away out of the gate. So I wonder if they told Ricardo they wanted to go to the lead, which I don't really know why. But
it's crazy.
Yeah, so there was so much going on there. And the unfortunate part of it is that, Rapoli posted a 2-minute video that says update on IRAD. He talked about IRAD for 10 seconds and then ran it for 1 minute and 50 seconds. It's like, come on, man.
It reminds me of some of the corners of Mets Twitter that I hang out on. Sometimes the games we love make us a little crazy at times, and it's better to take that deep breath before taking to the keyboard. Let's put it that way.
It was a good reminder of why they give coaches in some sports a cool down period.
Yes.
Right. There's no reason to stick a microphone in their face right after. And I'm sure at some point in your life you've done losing sound with a trainer or jockey. I have, and you still got to give them a little time.
Yes.
Right. Stuffing the microphone in their face right away is not a great idea.
No, you might get something that'll go viral, but not for the right reasons.
Correct.
And I think that was the case here. All right. I think we've covered that enough for the time that we have. You could do an hour on those two races easily. We talk about some 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not sponsors yet, but this segment should be sponsored by Spendthrift. I gotta give them a call, actually.
A good weekend for the public storage silks, no doubt about it.
Let's talk about Tommy Joe first and foremost. Todd Pletcher's 7th win in the Spinaway, an 85 figure, matching the one on debut. But the way she did it, man, it looked really, really impressive. Do you think she's going to go forward? Is this more? Did you want to see that figure come back even higher to match the visual? And could this be a little bit about overmatched horses in behind? Where's she going to go next, Tommy Joe? And not in terms of the race target. We know that. How much more does she have in her, and does she want to go farther? I think those are the main questions going forward.
It feels like it, right? It feels like she'll go farther. Pedigree-wise, it indicates that she should. She runs like a horse that looks like more distance. Should really be no great issue. I wouldn't be terribly concerned with it. She's got an awful lot of tactical speed. My understanding is they're going to run her in the Alcibiades, so she'll have a 2-turn test. And, it brought up something that I was trying to think about, Pete, but who was Todd Pletcher's last really good 2-year-old filly? It's been a long, long time.
Yeah, there were so many for a while, but it's what was his last Juvenile fillies winner? Maybe that's a way of.
Does he have one?
I thought he won that race. I have a vision. I have a memory that's the synapse is starting to fire. Let me take a look while you tell us more about what you thought of this performance.
So, I thought it looked a lot like her debut, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
She was in hand, she was stalking. And no, you're going to look at that and realize he has never won the juvenile fillies.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't think there were that many trophies in his case that he didn't have. I mean, will this horse get him one? I mean, how I mean, single digit odds, presumably with another. I mean, and the favorite with another win. But how sanguine are you about the chances of this one to break that hoodoo?
I mean, look, 285 buyers at Saratoga for a filly is damn good. So she's clearly at the head of the class. Her PPs look a little bit more advanced than those of a horse like Immersive. She's faster through her first two starts, and she's trained like a good horse from the beginning. So I would say, all signs point to her being exceptionally tough. I don't know why there would be any reason to be against her. She's got the ability to switch off. Distance wise, it should be no issue. The dam side looks very good. So yeah, I'd be buying Tommy Joe stock right now. We've just not seen much out west that leads you to believe that there could be somebody lurking out there. The horses that she beat in her debut have come back to run well. Tennessee Belle broke her maiden next out, duplicated the figure. Caradice broke her maiden next out, went up 9 points. So yeah, it all looks good at this point. No great issue. The key is, can he keep her at a high level for the rest of the remainder of time? And I don't see why not.
Yeah, well, the Keeneland race will be a key clue for sure. Let's go to the hopeful traditional closing day feature at Saratoga. Now, this was crazy effort from Ted Nafi. I mean, this came back a 98 on the clock, and you didn't need the clock to see this horse running in his own race, galloping out like he might get better going farther. Another huge run from Into Mischief Juvenile. I mean, this was just terrific effort. And, Butane, no mug, just no match for this horse at any stage of the race, seemingly. I liked him going in, but I didn't expect this.
No. I mean, a 98 Fig and the Hopeful, gosh, that's as high as anybody I can remember in a while. So, yeah, this was real. This was very, very strong. This horse would bid to be Todd Pletcher's first Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner since Shanghai Bobby, which,
a minute ago. Yep.
Yeah, it was 13 years ago. But, yeah, he looks very, very good. Another one that feels like he should stretch out. This was a horse that was purchased. He was $650,000 at Keeneland. So unlike Tommy Joe was a homebred. But yeah, this I don't know which superlatives you can't use to describe this effort. It was very, very good. There was a brief period of time on the turn where you thought, you know what, Soldier and Diplomat is kind of set a slow pace. Maybe he can kick on. And no, that was over very, very quickly. This horse put some distance on him right away. He looks outstanding.
Have we heard, is he Keeneland bound as well?
I would guess, right? I would assume he's Breeders' Futurity bound, where he'll meet up with a horse like Big Dom of Tom Amos's. Tom's going to run It's Our Time in the Champagne and Big Dom in the Breeders' Futurity. So looking forward greatly to seeing both of those two. And there'll, of course, be plenty of others. There's some good Kentucky-based horses. It seems like anybody based in New York, Ted Nafi is just a lot better than.
Yeah, I mean, this was a terrific effort, and we've seen very flashy 2-year-old runs that don't always translate to success at the Breeders' Cup. I think of the Mandela filly from a couple of years ago. I think of
Tammaro.
Yeah, that's right, Tammaro. I think of Boltoro himself, who had I think it was in the penultimate race of the 2-year-old season, had a 1-0 something Fig.
Yeah.
Hopefully Ted Nafi can keep building and take this all the way through. I mean, I just think he's a very exciting prospect, and it'll be great to see where he stacks up against those talented Tom Amos runners as the year goes on. Just a couple minutes left, Nick. Anything to speed round from the weekend?
I don't know if there were any other performances I would want to specifically highlight. I do think as far as Monday at Saratoga goes, Stars and Strides, who won the Saranac, I know it was a restricted race. I know he only got an 85 Fig. That feels like a Bill Mott horse who we're going to hear about a little bit down the road. So he feels like a horse that's going to get a little bit better next year. Shout out, I would say, to Wimbledon Hawkeye, who won the Nashville Derby at Kentucky Downs. in a big weekend for Frankie Dettori, who has now won both of the Nashville Derbies, both of them with horses that weren't eligible for all the money in the pot, but were
Only
eligible
the 2 million, not the 3 million
only the
plus.
2 million, right? So no, good racing at Kentucky Downs for sure, and they've obviously got a tremendous card coming up on Saturday and racing on Thursday as well. So those were kind of, I think, the only other ones I'd probably touch on.
Yeah, we've got Kentucky Downs covered backwards and forwards. We'll be doing analysis videos for every day. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel. Follow us on the In the Money Players podcast, wherever you get your pods. You can also get our free email newsletter. We're doing email newsletters for each day at Kentucky Downs. We have Will Humphrey doing tremendous work over there, and Michael Dommel back to his regularly scheduled post. I pinch hit for him on Saturday. Big shoes to fill covering Kentucky Downs. But if you want free tips and analysis for Kentucky Downs, we got you covered. InTheMoneyPodcast.com/email. It's been incredible racing there and lots of contest action coming up. Our friends at TwinSpires.com have a big Saturday contest, and there's the King of the Turf contest. You can get details about that one over at the Kentucky Downs website. You know what? Maybe I'll try to put links to both of these contests in the show notes too for this one. One last shout out before we get out of here, Nick. Penny breakage, fun to see. Big Beautiful, for example, paying $8.58 to win. We got a lot of new people around here, especially on the YouTube side. Tell them why that's a big deal and such good news for horse players.
Yeah, I mean, that's a horse that would have paid $8.50 before, right? So 8 cents is returned into the players' pockets, and this is something that was championed by Pat Cummings when he was at the Racing Think Tank for Thoroughbred Idea Foundation for Craig Bernick, and it's now been put in place in a couple of different spots, including Kentucky and New York. So yeah, just put some of that money back into the players' hands, which, you know, this is one of those where you don't need to experiment with it, but the more money you put in the players' pockets, the more that's going to go through the windows. So this is part of the cost benefit analysis that seems to be forgotten a little bit too regularly.
Yeah, for sure. You think 8 cents, maybe you think why is that a big deal? Well, think about how much money was bet in that show pool. Think about how much money that actually is. This is a de facto takeout reduction. Every economic study that's ever been done says the takeout across the board in horse racing right now is too high for maximum business effect, even for the good of the own industry. It's a complicated issue, but from everything I've read, I believe it. This is a way to get around some of the political hurdles of lowering the takeout across the board and effectively lowering it for players. We love it. And I'm just going to play a show parlay when Naira comes back in its honor, I think, daily. Nick, thank you so much. Appreciate having you on here. We're going to be doing this a lot more between now and that first Saturday in November.
You bet, my friend. Love it.